Recently, the third season of Classroom of the Elite was released, so I decided to make a video for you to reminisce about what happened in the first season. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, it really helps me create videos. Also, check out my video for a brief summary of the second season of Jujutsu Kaisen. I put a lot of effort into it. Without further ado, let's get started. The anime begins with the protagonist's contemplation on equality while riding a bus. Upon an elderly woman entering the bus, he looks around, but no one offers her a seat. When the bus stops near an elite school for highly gifted students whose graduates have a guaranteed entry into universities, the protagonist is distracted by a girl who was also on the bus with him. She asks why he was looking at her on the bus, to which he responds that he simply wanted to understand why she didn't offer her seat. She firmly declares her principle of not giving up her seat. From her tone, it is evident that the girl is quite haughty. Later, the 1D class students get acquainted with each other. The protagonist's name is Ayanokoji Kiyotaka. He dislikes unnecessary attention and communicates poorly with people. The arrogant girl from the bus is seated near him. The girl who wants to be friends with everyone is called Kikyu Kushida. The blonde from the bus, also in their class, is named Rokusuke Kuenji. Then, the protagonist's thoughts are interrupted by the class heartthrob, of course, after Kuenji, Hirata Yosuke. He suggests Ayanokoji introduce himself to the class, which he struggles with. The process of classmates getting to know each other is interrupted by a brood on the last desk, Kensudo, who declares it's all for little kids. The homeroom teacher of Class D, Chabashira Sae, enters the class and starts explaining the school's rules to the students. The students reside in dormitories throughout their schooling. The opportunity to leave the school premises is restricted. However, the school provides numerous facilities from cinemas to clothing and tech shops. They make purchases using points accrued in the school's computer system, where 1 point equals 1 Japanese yen. According to her, with points, you can buy anything. Points are earned through the students' achievements. At the start of their education, each student was given 100,000 points. After this revelation, it's no surprise that all the new classmates rush to spend their points on their hobbies, entertainment, clothing, and so forth. Only a small number found something suspicious in this and refrained from spending all their points immediately. The protagonist encounters that rude girl in the store. Her name is Horikita Suzun, whose older brother is the head of the student council, Horikita Manabu. Later, Ayanokoji meets his sociable classmate, Kushida, who asks him to help her make friends with Horikita since she doesn't talk to anyone else except him. Their plan was to lure Horikita to a cafe where they would accidentally meet Kushida. However, the plan failed as Horikita caught onto their scheme and simply walked away. Education for the students passes as carefree as possible. They chat during classes, sit on their phones, sleep at their desks, arrive late, and after a month, when it was time for points replenishment, the students noticed that they were not credited any points. Chabashira laughed and remarked that this class is simply a bunch of fools, and did they really think that such a large sum would be credited to simple high school students for nothing? After that, she explains how everything works. All actions of the students are closely monitored at the school. There is a special S-system that evaluates students in a digital equivalent. How exactly students are evaluated is unknown. The class letter indicates its authority. A signifies the best, while D stands for the worst. Moving from one class to another is impossible. Besides individual points, there are also class points that determine the class status. This means if Class D earns more class points than Class C, then Class D becomes C and vice versa. Also, depending on the number of class points, students will receive money. 1 class point equals 100 individual points. Since they misbehaved throughout this month, they earned 0 points. However, the teacher states that there is a chance for the class to increase points during the midterm exam. And those who fail to meet the threshold will be expelled from the school.
Вообще похуё.
Next, we move to the swimming pool where, importantly, Horikita notices Ayanokoji's athletic physique and asks if he engages in any sports, to which he denies. Then we shift to a cafe where Horikita deceitfully, by inviting him for a tasty meal, asks Ayanokoji to gather the lagging students in the library to help improve their studies and prevent their class points from dropping. Initially, Ayanokoji talks to them himself, but they refuse, so he calls Kushida and she easily gathers everyone in the library. The process of tutoring the lagging students fails due to Horikita's inability to communicate properly, resulting in them leaving the group. Later that evening, Ayanokoji goes outside to the food vending machine and overhears Horikita talking to her brother. During their conversation, it becomes apparent that the sister highly respects her brother, but he gets angry that his sister ended up in Class D, thus tarnishing his reputation. He decides to discipline her, but Ayano decides to intervene. He grabs his hand. Manabu tries to hit Ayano, but he easily dodges.
You fight like an expert. Which of the arts do you practice?
Piano and calligraphy.
Manabu tells us about a student who scored exactly 50 points on each test, hinting at Ayano, but he claims it's purely coincidental. Horikita questions him about whether everything her brother said is true, and Ayano responds in a similar manner. Afterward, they discuss the exam and the weaker students taking it. Horikita has already resigned herself to the idea that they'll be expelled from school, and she even thinks it could be a good lesson for others. However, the protagonist hints to her that because she views everyone as burdensome and doesn't let anyone get close, that's why she ended up in Class D. At the end of the series, the day of the exam arrives, and somehow all the students manage to pass it. Horikita asks Ayano how he managed it. We go back 3 days where Ayano is walking through the park and witnesses Sudo, his classmate, being bullied by students from Class C. Hanami Ichinos, another student from Class B, intervenes. Ayano suggests Sudo should meet with Horikita, but he refuses and leaves for basketball practice. After practice, Horikita speaks with Sudo herself and gives him notes to help him prepare, not for him, but for her own sake. Later, Ayano and Kushida arrange to buy past year's test questions from seniors in Class D. However, Ayano asks Kushida to distribute the tests herself and claims she obtained them as he doesn't want to stand out. Back in reality, it turns out Sudo is the only one who hasn't passed with the minimum score. The teacher plans to expel Sudo, but Horikita, along with Ayano, intends to purchase a single point, reminding the teacher that in the school, one can buy anything with points. As a result, Sudo isn't expelled. In celebration, they throw a party where the protagonist reveals to everyone that it was Horikita who negotiated with the teacher to save Sudo. Kushida forgets her phone with Ayano, and as he goes to return it, he witnesses Kushida's true nature. It turns out she hates Horikita and wishes her dead. She grabs Ayano's hand and presses it against herself, leaving fingerprints, warning him that if he reveals what he saw, she'll accuse him of harassment. Later, we find ourselves in Class B, where their peculiar teacher suffers from a hangover but praises the class for their results. On their part, the class commends Ichinos for organizing their studies. Then, we return to the scene where Ayano, Horikita, and Kushida are heading to class. Despite Class D increasing their class points, there's a delay in the calculation of individual points due to technical glitches. After the class, Ichinos calls Ayano to talk privately, admitting she received a love letter but doesn't reciprocate the feelings. She asks Ayano to pretend to be her boyfriend. Listen to his response.
Ichinose, it's hard to confess your feelings. It makes you so open and vulnerable. You spend every day in agony, but you still can't do it. That's a painful place to be. The words "I love you" stick in your throat, and no matter how hard you try, you can't force them out. She was brave, so she deserves an honest answer. Do you think you can give her that much at least?
Ichinos followed Ayano's advice and honestly responded to her classmates' feelings. We transition to Class C, where the class leader, Ryuen Kakeru, has already set in motion a plan to frame Class D. It turns out that a complaint was filed against Sudo for allegedly assaulting 3 students from Class C, although Sudo claims it was in self-defense. To prevent Sudo's expulsion from the school, the class decides to find witnesses or evidence that could prove his innocence. Learning about this, Ichinos decides to help them, using her connections as a token of gratitude to Ayano for his assistance. She manages to discover that there is an anonymous witness to the fight. Additionally, it becomes known that she somehow has a significant number of points in her account. The group gathers in the main character's room to discuss the situation, where later Horikita arrives and says that most likely their classmate Sakura was the anonymous witness. The next day, Kushida tries to talk to her, but Sakura avoids the conversation for some unknown reason, seemingly afraid for herself. Overcoming her fear, Sakura eventually agreed to help and asked Ayano to go with her to an electronics store to repair a camera, as she was afraid to go alone due to a harassing store clerk. Ayano assists her, after which she begins to feel sympathy for the main character. Eventually, Ayano recommends that she tell the student council everything she knows, not for Sudo or the class, but for herself. Later, in the dormitory, Kushida showed Ayana Koji several indecent photos of Sakura that she found on the internet, which explains why Sakura wears fake glasses, trying to hide her appearance. During the student council meeting, representatives from classes C and D gathered, along with 3 boys who were allegedly assaulted by Pseudo. Horikita's brother presides over the meeting. Acknowledging that Horikita won't be able to speak properly, Ayana Koji resorted to physical contact to bring her back to her senses. Sakura, as a witness, appeared at the meeting and displayed a photo revealing the moment of the altercation. Considering the lack of concrete evidence confirming Pseudo's guilt or innocence, the Class C homeroom teacher suggested a compromise: temporarily suspend Pseudo and the victims from activities. However, Horikita refuses and declares that Class C staged the fight to expel Pseudo from school. Manabu postponed the decision-making to the next day. After the meeting, Manabu states that the side claiming the truth must provide evidence of the other side's guilt. Then, we see one of the coolest and funniest scenes, in my opinion.
Who's all there? I'm pulling up with an emo chick that's broken. This, that,
Music every day like that. She be too my friends are all in.
At the beginning of episode 6, we learn that Sakura has internet admirers who have found her address and are stalking her. At the same time, Horikita devises a plan to expose Class C's lies. Realizing there were no surveillance cameras in the city where the fight took place, they install their own cameras there. They deceitfully summon 3 beaten boys from Class C and point out the cameras. The boys don't understand the purpose of the Pseudo trial if there's video evidence. Ayana Koji suggests to them that the school wants to see how they handle their own problems in this way. Horikita reminds them that in their current situation, both they and Pseudo face expulsion from school, Pseudo for the beating and them for lying to the school administration. However, she proposes an alternative: they will simply withdraw the complaint. Under pressure, they agree. Afterwards, Ayana Koji goes to Ichino's to return the cameras, and at that moment, Sakura calls him, but the call quickly disconnects. She's in danger. The creepy guy from the store has caught up with her. He intends to carry out his dirty intentions, but the protagonist and Ichino's intervene and hand him over to the police. Later, there's a dialogue between Horikita and their homeroom teacher. She explains that Class D receives the most problematic students, and she considers Ayana Koji the most problematic. She recommends that Horikita learn more about him before it's too late. At the end of the 6th episode, while walking down the corridor, Ayana Koji encounters Manabu, who praises him for handling the situation and suggests joining the student council. The main character declines, citing the desire for a peaceful school life. Later, his sister points out to him that he hinted there were no cameras, that he manipulated her, and that he didn't help unless he wanted to. She asks him who he is. We are taken to a flashback where young Ayana Koji stands among children, and suddenly, one boy falls and begins to choke, while Ayana Koji stands there, looking at him blankly. He responds that he will help her achieve Class A as he promised.
But
what?
don't go prying into my life.
Episode 7, it's a filler, so it's quick. 3, 2, 1, go. Ayana Koji learned about the boys' operation to spy on the girls in the changing room and warned Horikita about it. She confiscated their memory cards. That's it. Oh, and Horikita delivered a cool speech that no one cared about. During the summer break, the school gifted the students a cruise on an ocean liner. The series begins in the ship's theater, where a dialogue occurs between Ayana Koji and his homeroom teacher, Chabashira, informing the protagonist that an unknown person called the school demanding Ayana Koji be expelled. The teacher tries to manipulate him, hinting that if he doesn't strive for Class A, he will be ousted from the school. Ayana Koji warns her that she will regret attempting to manipulate him. Meanwhile, on the liner, Kanji gathers the courage to confess his feelings to Kushida, but he only manages to negotiate addressing each other by their names, which is considered a success for him and the other boys. Koenji, as always, remains excellent. The boys go to a restaurant where, due to Pseudo's uncivil behavior, a student from Class A, Katsuragi, reprimands them, looking remarkably like a 16-year-old student. Pseudo and others leave the restaurant. Meanwhile, Horikita and Ayana Koji conclude that the school organized this cruise for a specific purpose. Class C's leader, Kakeru Ryuin, confronts Horikita as 3 Class C boys informed him that Horikita set them up. Their conversation is interrupted by a fellow female classmate with whom they had a pleasant chat. The next morning, it's announced that the liner is approaching an island and all students must disembark as it will be beneficial for them. It turns out the school administration has arranged a special exam, a survival test for the students on the uninhabited island for a whole Sunday. The students arrive on the island where the most popular boy in Class D, Hirata, takes the lead role. Each class is given a set of necessary survival items and 300 points to spend on purchases the class deems essential. Next, the group of 9 individuals is divided into 3 teams to find a campsite. Campsites are scattered across the island, and claiming and maintaining these sites earn additional points. Only the class leader, elected by the students themselves, can declare ownership of a site. The leader receives a special card with their name, activating site ownership every 8 hours. Moreover, correctly identifying other class leaders earns 50 points each, totaling 150 for 3, while incorrectly identifying deducts 50 points each. The main character joins a group with Sakura and our resilient Koenji, who, surprisingly, is remarkably adapted to wilderness life. Trying to catch up with the tree-jumping Koenji, akin to Tarzan, Ayano Koji along with Sakura stumble upon a campsite already claimed by Class A. Later, Class D finds a good campsite and elects Horikita as their leader. The class then sets up camp and starts organizing. Hirata asks Ayano Koji to take a few classmates and gather dry branches for firewood. While collecting them, they find a beaten girl from Class C and bring her to their camp. In the evening, it's discovered that Koenji has escaped from the island, resulting in a penalty deduction of 30 points for the class. The 10th episode starts with a flashback where young Ayano Koji is sitting and working on something when an unknown person approaches him, saying, "He who possesses abilities but doesn't use them showcases his foolishness." The next day on the island, the class engages in routine activities, gathering food, catching fish, and so on. Ayano Koji and Horikita decide to explore what other classes are doing. In Class B, everything seems to be going well, everyone is engaged in their tasks, and they've also recruited someone from Class C. Class A wasn't as friendly. When attempting to enter a cave, they were almost beaten up by a crowd. Class C, on the other hand, seemed to be enjoying life. On the first day, Ryuin spent all his points on food, water, and entertainment. Afterward, he tried to molest Horikita again. Ayano Koji speculated that Ryuin's strategy involved not participating in the exams as it was based on freedom of choice. The following day, it turned out that Class C had completely left the island. Ayano Koji asked Ichinos about the relationship between Sakayanagi and Katsuragi, the leaders of Class A. Ichinos replied that they were essentially opposites, one conservative, the other progressive, yet they managed to find common ground. However, due to Sakayanagi's illness preventing her from participating in the exams, her subordinates are following Katsuragi, much to their dismay. The next morning, it was revealed that someone had stolen Kei Karuizawa's underwear. All the girls demanded that the boys show their bags, suspecting them. It turned out that someone had planted Kanji Ike's underwear. He, fearing for his well-being, panicked and handed the underwear to Ayano Koji, who had to hide it. The girls insisted on a more thorough inspection of all the boys, including checking their pockets. During the search, Hirata, as a trusted individual, noticed that the underwear was in the possession of the protagonist but didn't say anything to the girls, believing it wasn't him. However, in exchange, he asked Ayano Koji to find out who the thief was. In Class D's camp, a division begins. The girls demand to split the camp and relocate the tents. Hirata deals with this, but Horikita appoints Ayano Koji to help him. Ibuki, a girl from Class C, realizes that everyone suspects her of theft. Ayano Koji says he believes her. Ayano Koji learns that all this time Horikita has been unwell but is pushing through to not let the class down. During fishing, one of the classmates decided to play a prank on her by soiling her with dirt, for which he immediately paid the price. Horikita went to clean up, but then something terrible happened. Someone stole the leader's map. She secretly confides this only in Ayano Koji, and they agree not to tell anyone, suspecting Ibuki. Meanwhile, a fire breaks out in the camp. Someone set fire to the survival guide. The fire is successfully extinguished, but everyone notices that the girl from Class C has fled. Horikita runs after her, demanding the return of the stolen map. A scuffle breaks out between them. The girls fight fiercely, but Ibuki lands a sharp blow from below, knocking the unwell girl to the ground. Ibuki confesses to stealing the map. She then digs into the ground and retrieves a walkie-talkie, informing Katsuragi that she got the map as previously agreed. After that, an unknown person approaches them, to whom she hands over the map. Ayano Koji finds Horikita and they have a conversation where the girl admits that she doesn't have any friends but she needs them. Applying pressure to her carotid artery, Ayano puts her to sleep, promising to handle everything himself. After that, he carries her to the administration post so she can be taken care of. On the last day of the exam, all teams were offered to fill out a form with the names of their leaders. All classes, except Class C, lined up in anticipation of the exam results. However, unexpectedly, Ryuan, who had stayed on the island, emerged. Subsequently, all the intricate plans executed by the characters were revealed. On the first day, Ryuan and Katsuragi made a deal whereby Class C would give all their belongings to Class A, and Ryuan promised to provide evidence of the leaders of all classes. To achieve this, he compelled 2 of his own people to spy on Classes D and B. Then, Class C spent all their points in a single day and left the island the next day, leaving only Ryuan and 2 spies. Ryuan lived covertly on the island, subsisting on snakes. To outsmart Class A, he secretly made a deal with Sakayanagi's group, who revealed the identity of Class A's leader. They then took the leader card from Horikita because Ibuki's camera had malfunctioned and they showed it to Katsuragi. On the final day of the exam, Ryuan was the only one who correctly named the leaders of all classes. During the announcement of the results, something incredible happened. Class C took the last place with 0 points, Class A took the third with 120 points, Class B took the second with 140 points, and Class D secured the first place with 225 points. Afterward, all the classes returned to the ship and we learned about Ayano cunning plan. When Horikita dropped out of the game, Ayano secretly took her place since, according to the rules, a leader could be replaced for respectful reasons. He knew Ibuki was a spy and broke down her camera, forcing her to steal the card. Then, he asked his classmate to soil Horikita, prompting her to go wash up, and Ibuki managed to steal the card. Subsequently, he caused a fire to make everyone panic, allowing Ibuki to escape. Afterward, she of course handed the card to Ryuan. Regarding his presence on the island, Ayano also knew about it. When they met him, he had a radio, the same one he found on Ibuki. If she maintained communication with him, it meant he was on the island. Initially, he planned to win by points for camping, but then he observed Katsuragi leaving the shelter with the card alongside Yahiko. Katsuragi was cautious, so the protagonist assumed Yahiko was the leader. He did not interfere with Class B since they were allies, and they would have identified the leader even without his involvement. Everyone begins to praise Horikita at the request of Ayano. Hirata states that they won thanks to her. Later, the class advisor calls Ayano for a conversation, praising him and revealing that the person who demanded Ayano expulsion from school was his father. Then, there is a conversation between Horikita and the protagonist, where the girl admits that he is her friend and expresses gratitude. During the dialogue, we smoothly transition to the protagonist's monologue, which is the culmination of the anime.
But Horikita, I've never considered you an ally. Not you, not Kushida, not Hirata. People are nothing but tools to me. All of them. I don't care what I have to do to win. I don't care what I have to sacrifice. In this world, winning is everything. And in the end, I'm going to win. That's all that matters.